Okay. So I am speaking to Lauren Rodriguez. Thank you so much for joining me. And would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Robert, for having me. As you said, my name is Lauren Rodriguez. My husband, Keonne Rodriguez, is currently in federal prison for a sentence of 5 years. He was sentenced for building a non-custodial Bitcoin wallet that focused on privacy, and the government took issue with that. What he actually pled to was operating a money service business without a license.
Mhm.
We can get into all that, but
Yeah. And it's now been 1 month, if I'm not mistaken, right? I think we just
yeah.
crossed the 19th when Lauren, you documented your experience of dropping off Keonne, and I'd been following the Samourai case, but it really hadn't sunk into me, like the human side of of what the government was putting you through until that moment, and it shook me completely. I think you've really done an amazing thing in sharing that story, and so my hope in speaking to you now is that more people will hear it, and because the more I learn, the more shocking this story becomes.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for that.
Hmm.
First off, for us, it started on April 24th, 2024. So previous to this, Keone and Bill, they started Samourai Wallet in around 2015 and developed it for almost 10 years. You could download it from Google Play, from some other sources, some other Bitcoin wallets that implemented their features, and had a really strong community who really valued what they were putting out there. So April 24th, 2024, we were raided pre-dawn FBI HRT units with an MRAP, and called us outside on the loudspeakers.
Yeah.
Still
And
dark outside.
this was at 5 a.m., if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Yeah. So
Okay.
still in our, we were woken up
Yeah.
by our dog
Yeah.
barking outside. And yeah, so, go downstairs. You're just listening, go downstairs in pajamas, have, laser sights on our chest.
Yeah.
The guys, the HRT units and tactical gear with night vision goggles,
Hmm.
they flew a drone through the house. It was a shock and awe tactic
Yeah. So
again
I heard you say the
for
thing about the drone
yeah.
on the Bitcoin Matrix podcast, but also just you sort of painted the picture there. Did at any point they give you an explanation as to why 5 a.m.? Like, is this like the process is the punishment kind of thing, or what do you think?
I think that really is it. I think it's a mix of that, and they have these really big budgets to buy these
Hmm.
fun toys, and they want an excuse to use them. So I
Oh,
think it's kind of
wow.
a mix of the two.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of on a weird aside, I have a cousin. So when they bring in these units, they don't bring
Hmm.
them from your local community because there's a chance you might know them, and they might not want to do this if
Hmm.
they know your
Yeah,
neighbor.
as I
That's
understand it,
kind
the
of a
mayor
tactic.
of your hometown is very much on your side and has been advocating for you, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Kath, she's wonderful.
Hmm.
Really could not be more blessed with kind of our community here.
That's
It
great.
is a small community, but they've been nothing but supportive. But so I have a weird interaction where I have a cousin who trains jujitsu. I can't say that word, but does that and happens to train with the HRT unit, which is the hostage rescue something else unit of the
Mm-hmm.
FBI, who were actually the guys who raided our house.
Mm-hmm.
And so he asked them, like, "Hey, why'd you do this to my cousin's house?"
Mm-hmm.
And they said it's because we had a large dog and we have on one of the doors we have a ring camera that's actually doesn't even work. It's from the previous owners of the house, so that's the reason. So anyone out there, if you have a dog and a ring camera, you too could be
Right.
raided pre-dawn raid by the FBI.
Famously, like Hal Finney, he experienced swatting, right? Like
Mm.
this is a tactic that has been used to sort of aggress upon people, and in a way, it just feels like what this isn't a hostage situation. This is even if you took seriously the charges that were put against Keone, which we'll get into that. Um, so I looked into the Bernie Madoff case to see, like, did they do that for him? And it was like, no, like two FBI agents like knocked on the door. And yet, do you see it sort of as almost like a bullying tactic, perhaps?
So yeah, as far as I know, like this was our first interaction with law
Mm-hmm.
enforcement. So they never, wrote and contacted our attorneys or
Mm-hmm.
contacted either Keonne or Bill and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" Or, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
we think this criminal maybe used your software. Can you help us out?" Like nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing until the raid.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they're not right. JP Morgan Chase, like all these banks that are getting in trouble for
Mm-hmm.
knowingly money laundering
Mm-hmm.
for, Epstein and stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
they have proof that they knowingly knew that this was criminal money going through their KYC software. And no, they get contacted through their lawyers and, told you need to don't destroy evidence and you need to come and explain yourself and answer our questions.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't do any of that. And I don't know if it was, right, this was all started under Biden's regime
Mm-hmm.
and his administration, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And they definitely took a very strong anti-crypto stance
Mm-hmm.
that's still, I would say, functioning within especially the SDNY and even the judiciary of the SDNY
Mm-hmm.
courts. And so I think it really was a warning to not just us as the targets of it, but to the industry and even
Mm-hmm.
further to other privacy developers who might be working on privacy apps for
Mm-hmm.
communication or various things
Mm-hmm.
that this is something that they're going to come down hard. So you better
Mm-hmm.
think twice before working on it.
Yeah. If I'm understanding what you're saying, then they're sending a message before the presumption of innocence is not even held in high regard in that case, because they're putting you through all of this to send a message for something that you've not even, there's been no plea, there's been no conviction. This is your first interaction with like, other than I suppose probably a speeding ticket here or there or something, like just your
I don't
normal
even
day
know
to day.
that. Yeah, like I don't even know if we have any of those.
Jeez. Yeah.
Yeah, we're quite boring people
Yeah.
outside of this.
Man.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So then the district that was that was filing these charges was the Southern District of New York. You are not New Yorkers, and neither is Bill, who is in Portugal, and they sent a team
correct.
to extradite him out of Portugal. Is do we do?
So
Are you able to speak to that at all? I know that was a different event. Mm-hmm.
yeah, but it was a coordinated raid, which was interesting. So not only did they do the pre-dawn raid here, they coordinated and flew agents. So they flew agents from all across the country
At the
to
same
Western
time.
Pennsylvania. Yeah. And at the same exact time. So I don't know, they must have been on, some kind of communication saying, "Go now." They
Hmm.
raided them in Portugal. So, and you have to think about, right, not only the fact that this is just terrible, tactics to
Hmm.
instill fear
Hmm.
and all this, but the cost to the American taxpayer of doing this when, again, a simple phone call, the attorney was known for the company,
Hmm.
how much simpler and frankly cheaper that would have been for them.
So yeah, it just strikes me that the cost is not the point. What they're doing is the point, and scaring people to not innovate and not do something that operates outside of the boundaries of what. But the thing about that, though, is that you weren't even operating outside of the boundaries of regulation. And it seems to me that you guys realized that late in the court process, if I'm not mistaken, that they had, just that you had supportive evidence of operating within the regulatory framework. Is that correct?
Yeah. So they designed this. So the software, it was a full Bitcoin wallet that
Mm-hmm.
they had, and they
Mm-hmm.
also have a node implementation and some different things on the back
Mm-hmm.
end. But the two products, or product software that they created that
Hmm.
the government took issue with was something called Whirlpool, which was their
Hmm.
implementation of a coin join,
Hmm.
and Ricochet, which is just a transaction that adds extra hops. All of these were
Hmm.
non-custodial, and Keonne and Bill made very strategic decisions when developing the software to stay within the guidelines that have been provided by FinCEN as to who is a money service business and therefore needs to do KYC and AML. They recognize that, yes, if you are a money service business, you do need to perform these tasks, and who isn't a money service business. So therefore, you don't need to keep that information, because I think, as we all know, or we should know, that when you do have that kind of personal information on your clients or your customers, that's a risk that it's breached. It happens all
Hmm.
the time. And then
Hmm.
and so that's just not something. They weren't trying to skirt the laws to skirt the laws. They were trying to
Hmm.
follow the laws and build their software in a way that they wouldn't need to take this information and therefore put their customers or their users at risk. So that's where they started from. And then,
Hmm.
as you rightly said, about a year into the case, we had gone through. They had sent us terabytes and terabytes of discovery.
Hmm.
Bill's attorney, told the court that if they'd hit, it was 75% of the Library of Congress, and if it had been the amount of discovery, had it been printed out on paper, was stacked to the moon and back 22 times. So they sent us everything except what our lawyers then said, wrote the prosecutors and said, hey, have you had any communications with FinCEN, the regulating body, as
Hmm.
to Samourai Wallet? And they
Hmm.
wrote back, oh, yes, in fact, we did. Here's our communication. We talked to them 6 months before the indictment.
Hmm.
And what they said was that, no, we don't think they would require a license because don't take custody of users'
Hmm.
funds. Simple as. And that's the guidelines that the whole industry was following,
Right.
and apparently correctly so.
So you have this stack to the moon of paperwork. So tell me about the house arrest, because I think, for me at least, I assumed that this was all going to blow over because it was so ridiculous. What was the mechanisms? Did he have like a thing on his leg?
There's multiple levels. We were arrested when he was arrested. When
Hmm.
our house was raided, he was arrested. He was taken to Pittsburgh and seen by a Pittsburgh federal
Hmm.
magistrate,
Hmm.
and she released him on I think it was a 100,000, 10,000, 100,000, something like that. Like, he didn't have to pay anything. He just had to sign to say, if I don't show up where I'm supposed to, I'll owe this money.
Okay.
And that was
Some sort
sorry,
of
I'm
bail
trying to
bond, I
think.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's
Yeah.
different levels. There's anyway. So
Mm.
that was one where they put an ankle monitor on him and he came
Hmm.
home. Then
Hmm.
we went to New York. We drove to New
Hmm.
York to present in front of that
So he's
judge.
allowed to leave to go to court, I guess. That's
Yes,
how that
yeah, that
works?
was the
Okay.
rule for that. And then they
Hmm.
put him on home incarceration.
Mm.
Home incarceration is the highest level of home detention.
Hmm.
He had an ankle monitor. He could not leave the four walls of our house. He could, and that, like, he couldn't go out
So you couldn't
for
take the
a
dog out?
haircut, or no, yeah, nothing.
Hmm.
Couldn't go in the yard. That's, it's the
Jeez.
four walls of your house.
Yeah.
That
So you
then
just get out of
got
COVID,
lessened.
and then they bring COVID back to just to you, though, only to you. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a strange, it's not, he worked from home, so like that
Hmm.
wasn't that, big of a deal, but it was
Hmm.
still just not, we were a couple that likes to do things together, and now
Of course.
everything fell on me
Hmm.
to, it's, if we ran out of an ingredient while I'm cooking dinner, I have to
Hmm.
stop cooking and then go get that ingredient, as opposed to just say, hey, go pick this up.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that was that for a while. Then they lessened it to back to home. I think maybe it's called detention. And that's where you're allowed out of the house for 4 hours per week, but you have to submit your schedule of where you're going to be and why you need to leave the house a week beforehand. So if you say, I need to go grocery shopping on Tuesday between one to
Mm,
three, and you always want to buffer it just in case
yeah.
because you have an ankle monitor on the whole time. And then towards the end, it was down to curfew.
Okay.
And so curfew was originally, I believe it was originally set 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we asked them to, hey, can you go up earlier because we're up early and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just kind of a funny. So that was the last thing, and then he was until self-surrendering
Mm-hmm.
to prison, which I think a lot of people don't realize
Yeah.
that that is a thing. That if you are out on bond,
Mm-hmm.
you do most people do drive themselves to the prison, and it's a really strange occurrence.
So yeah, and again, like, so before you've ever had any pleas or anything, that's when, the spotlights and the lasers and the drones come in. But then when he has to serve a sentence, it's like, oh, you can take him, whatever, he'll show up, and he's just so like the asymmetry there is so strange. It's so strange to me. Did that strike you at all? I know that you spoke about your reaction of wanting to reach out to him, and you had to wait. Um, just what was it like to go through that?
It was strange. I didn't actually put together the two until you just said that about the hostility of them coming to the house, and then
Hmm.
just, yeah, when you're going to be locked in a cage for 5 years, they
Hmm.
let you take yourself. I
Hmm.
guess maybe that's why some people, they aren't allowed to do that, because they do think that they're going to run, but they
Right.
they realize that he wasn't going to at this point. But taking him to prison, it was so from our house to the prison, and in a lot of ways, it's a very good thing. We're about an hour and a half, hour,
Hmm.
45 minutes away from the prison. So, that means I do get to visit him a lot, which is great. But driving down, it's like a long time and not enough time at the same time to be,
Mm.
knowing that we're going to be separated.
Hmm.
Even though we do have phone calls and I can go visit,
Hmm.
it's still, you're constantly monitored.
Hmm.
When we go to visitation, you're sitting in these little plastic chairs across from each other, and
Hmm.
thankfully it's not like in the movies where there's like a glass thing in between you.
Mm.
You're there in person, but it's such an alien
Hmm.
um situation to be in with your husband.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was hard. It was hard
Hmm.
dropping him off, and at the same time being hopeful that it won't
Hmm.
be for very long, but knowing
Yeah.
that it could be for 5 years. That's what the sentence is.
Yeah. 5 years. And you guys have been together, is it 13, 14 years? Somewhere in that
Yeah,
range?
somewhere in there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
somewhere in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
Okay.
long time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I mean, truly like built a life together. And so, how are you holding up with it? Like, because I'm sure that um, this has been an adjustment for you as well as for him, and I want to focus on him in a moment, but like, because I know you've been really productive on Twitter in raising awareness of what's happened, and just anyone who sees this, please just give Lauren a follow. I just saw you got invited to Woman of Bitcoin event, which is great because like I feel you should be center stage at every, we're gonna have conferences or whatever, and perhaps that's not what you're seeking, but every day that goes by, Trump has acknowledged hearing about this case, but hasn't done anything. And I think every day without a pardon, there's only one man who seems to be able to fix it in this peculiar world that we live in. So, but how are you doing?
As you said, I have been, like, this has definitely motivated me, and
Hmm.
that I do have a purpose, which is nice, because I think if I was just sitting here feeling sorry for myself, that would be a really hard place to be.
Hmm.
It's definitely different than my previous life. Like, I was a housewife, and
Hmm.
I was a very private person, and
Hmm.
and when the government posts your address on on documents for everyone to see, you kind of have to take. I had to take a step into a more public role, and even if I've said this a few times, but I really do feel like, 'cause so many people have reached out to me and said, that's my story too. This happened to me. This happened to my husband. This happened to someone I love. And
Hmm.
that, so now that I am in this position, I feel like it's kind of my duty to, even if Keonne would be pardoned tomorrow, to continue on to raise awareness that this is happening to people, and
Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah.
this is the reality of
Yeah.
what the federal justice system
Yeah.
is sometimes. I'm hoping it's gotten better. Like, I think, right, we do have a president who has been weaponized. Like, the same office, the Southern District of New York, went after him as went
Hmm.
after us. So, like, he's someone who knows what it's like to see lies being said about you,
Yeah.
and so there are, right, he, as you said about to the pardon, like, I think he, once he actually maybe gets it in front of him and sees it, then he will get it, and he will.
Hmm.
I really do believe he will grant a pardon. I think it's a
Yeah.
situation where he's the president of the United States and is a very busy man, and so there's maybe that, as the news has, there's been a lot going on that's
Yeah.
maybe taken his attention, but I hope
Yeah.
that there is
Yeah.
a chance for him to see it and to review the case.
Yeah, I saw you had a very touching post about witnessing some of the other pardons that have gone through, and but you're waiting for yours, and I agree. Like I can't imagine reading about like your case and then him just blowing it off. So I feel like, but that is where I've been going a little bit hard on some of the Bitcoin community, and I won't say any names for your sake here, but I will on Twitter or X. That being the case, I'm very disappointed in the people who might be able to more easily than you or I have the president's ear and are not explicitly advocating for this pardon. Now, what's your feel on that? Because some people, I want to give a shout out to Simply Bitcoin. Not that they need my shout out, but they have been consistently great on bringing up the Samourai Wallet, and they're doing like daily updates and stuff like that, which has been really wonderful. But there are people who haven't said a single word on it, and I will say that the more I've thought about it, the more I realize the plea deal that avoided the 20 years, and we should get to the court stuff because I kind of skipped over that, but an unlicensed money transmitter, as I understand it, is what what they have currently put Keonne in prison for 5 years. Well, what was Satoshi doing? So, okay, if you have this reverence for Satoshi, which some of the people who have been silent certainly say they do, well, then how can you possibly sleep at night not defending this Bitcoiner? Operating on the same principles. So I've teed you up there. That's obviously given away my perspective.
I think I'll start by saying I think the Biden DOJ would have put Satoshi in prison had they known who he was. The charges and the way that they framed it, they said, even though they didn't have custody, even though all these, that they were still conspiring to operate an unlicensed money transmitter. Well, so is there, if you apply the same logic, so is every lightning node operator, every miner, okay, it's kind of endless with their reasoning, and quite dangerous. And I completely disagree with it. As to people who haven't spoken out, I think it's probably twofold. First, I'm very thankful for anyone who is willing to lend their voice. For those that don't, I think primarily it could be because the government got the result they wanted, right? They're afraid to speak out. They're afraid that they'll be targeted next. That's a very valid fear, I think. And I'm not going to fault anyone who is trying to protect their family from, and is afraid for that. Like, it definitely did stifle a lot of developers from offering their software to the U.S. at their arrest.
To the extent that privacy is a shield, though, they're I feel like they call it like making a rod for your own back, right? Because you're progressively making privacy further and further away. So if you're scared, well, it's going to get scarier and scarier, right? They're like, so to me, that just makes what Keonne and yourself have done so much braver. And I just view this as like a hero's journey that you're on, and I would certainly a low point, but it's villain's punishment for hero's work.
Oh,
So.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I think a lot of people don't, and Keone mentioned this. He was on did a spaces with a kind of a younger Bitcoin guy.
Mhm.
And this, kind of brought up the fact that if you weren't around or weren't really participating in the, as financial sector kind of pre 9/11, you
Mm.
really don't know how much in a short time, how much privacy has been lost,
Mm.
specifically in finance, where you used to be able to go and open up a bank account without, providing an arm and a leg pretty much. And it was there was a lot of just the world was different, right? You didn't
Mhm.
have to show ID for everything, and it would have been strange if someone was asking you, especially to hold up your ID and take a selfie. That would be so foreign to them,
Mhm.
and just there's just been a lot of it's slowly been chipping away, and will continue to until people kind of do realize, hey, this is
Mhm.
this is wrong, and I desire, and it's a good thing, it's a normal thing to desire privacy. We have privacy in so many aspects of our daily lives that it
Mhm.
would be unthinkable if everyone, if you had to wear on your chest your entire net worth and your salary and
Mhm.
who you give money to, and
Mhm.
yeah, that would be shocking. But that's what Bitcoin, as an open ledger of the blockchain, kind of is.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
specifically on Bitcoin, it's important for privacy. But as a whole, people, I think, need to kind of think a little bit about what information they're giving, right? If you're
Mhm.
giving all your information away and not paying for a product, then you are the product. And I think that's kind of been lost.
Yeah. And like you said, with the ledger system, without privacy, Bitcoin, sure that you have the scarcity aspect of it, but it becomes a CBDC with extra steps to a certain degree.
Yeah.
If you have to um, operate and I believe that the countries that have been the most I suppose transparent with who are in their requirements. So you have to tell us whatever Bitcoin we have. I've had the most people who have become targets based on that public information, because of course they are. Because
Yeah.
it's like putting your gold in a transparent vault or something like that. Well, that just looks attractive to anybody who walks by, right? So, um, okay, so yeah, let's talk about the court case a little bit. So you're able to leave, and it's in New York. So I guess you guys have to like hotel yourself in order to make that accommodation. You're not New Yorkers. How do they have this jurisdiction? But somehow they do, because they had somebody use the tool, as I understand it, and they literally just
Yep.
pretend
On the
like,
streets of men downloaded the Samurai Wallet and made a transaction somewhere in Manhattan. That was their whole jurisdiction. Yeah, that's how they claimed it. But
mm,
yeah, it's the premier. They call themselves the sovereign district, the Southern District of New York. They're the sovereign district. They're the premier. They do all the financial crimes, all these big cases.
mhm,
They think very highly of themselves.
mhm,
Due to that, they're one of the most expensive jurisdictions to fight a court case. I just did a quick, search and kind of said roughly, right, if you take a case to
mhm.
trial in the Southern District of New York, you're looking at, per defendant, for a complicated case such as ours, I think it's over 13 million. So we don't have
Ludicrous.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
No,
ludicrous.
most people do not have that.
Right.
So, and the government has endless resources
Yeah.
to throw at you. So
Yeah.
it really is such a, David and Goliath
Hmm.
situation,
Hmm.
fighting in this
Yeah.
jurisdiction.
Well, it's almost worse because it's this. They're going to use this faceless system of we represent justice, and of course there are it is comprised of people and all their on their small pettiness and stuff like that. Because you described, was it 3 days before you were going to start with proceedings that the judge changed? Was it three days before or something like that?
Yeah, it was
Three,
something like
four.
4 days.
Yeah.
And yeah, so this was, about a year and a half into the case. So
Yeah.
the justice system moves very slowly, I found
Hmm.
out. And a lot of it's due to the fact that there was just such a massive amount of discovery.
Mm.
Most of it had no bearing whatsoever. They like to throw everything at you because you have to dig through it. You have to look at every piece
Hmm.
to determine whether it's going to be valuable for you or
Hmm.
for the prosecution, and how you can whatever answer to that.
These were digital, correct?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
everything's digital, so
So
you're
were you able to
paying.
like use AI or anything like that to help
I
or to
don't think we
assist?
used AI.
Okay.
Keone looked through a lot of the stuff.
Hmm.
It's also because, right, they're down the way that it's not like it's nicely formatted to search through
Mm.
either. It doesn't
Mm.
have like nice code names. So it
Hmm.
is a huge process.
Mm.
You're paying paralegals and other people to help go through it as well and kind of they may use some tools on the back end, some at least search things. I'm not totally
Hmm.
sure how they do that.
Hmm.
But so yeah, so it's a long process. And then we had gotten together our motion to dismiss. And what a motion to dismiss is you have to take whatever is in the indictment as fact. You're not arguing any of those facts of the indictment. But even if everything in the indictment was true, why the case should be dismissed on legal grounds. So this is completely just looking at the law, not the facts of the case. So we
Mm.
put together really, I think, brilliant motion to dismiss. We also had a motion we discussed earlier that they hid exculpatory evidence from us in regards to FinCEN. That's called a Brady violation.
Hmm.
So we were waiting on a ruling for that as well, and in arguments to that. We also had before the court
Question.
requests.
So that gets decided. Is that decided by the SDNY or is that decided by some sort of appellate
By the
circuit?
judge.
Oh, by the same judge.
But it was withheld from by the prosecution, by SDNY, and the
Right.
judge. This was before the judge to rule on
Oh,
it.
this is before. Okay. Okay. I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
So
Okay.
we had these. We had a bunch of things, and we were
Hmm.
going to New York, and then we had the other thing was whether the judge to decide if they were going to accept amicus briefs. And amicus
Mm.
briefs
Hmm.
are friends of the court letters, kind of help again with a judge is supposed to be an expert in the law. They can't be an expert in every case
Hmm.
that's going to appear before them. So this is a way for them to just get extra information from non-biased sources. From they're just representing the information basically.
Hmm.
And then there was a few other things. There was a motion to sever by bill so that there'd be two separate cases. There's a lot of there was no animosity. It's just that's something
Hmm.
you put
Hmm.
forth. And so we were prepared to go in and present this in front of Judge Berman. And a few days before, we get told, well, Judge Berman's no longer your judge. Your judge is now Denise Coates. So we go in to appear before her, first time seeing her. And we're thinking we're still going to argue these motions just in front
Right.
of another judge. We had a little bit of backstory that she's kind of so Judge Berman was one of the few federal judges who was not a federal prosecutor previously. Judge
Mm.
Coate was the head prosecutor in the criminal division of the Southern District of New York. So the case that's bringing it against us. So she's a prosecutor's prosecutor. So we're like, okay, but we figured, right? She's a judge.
Hmm.
She's going to try to hold her biases back and we in front of her. And that was not the case. She
Yeah.
denied every motion before her. She did not tell us why. She did not let us argue any of the motions. She just said denied and moved on. So we thought it was going to be, several hour long court
Yeah.
day.
So,
And it was 5-10 minutes.
so let's pause there because this is fascinating to me. Because I don't know if you ever listen to Michael Malice, but he sometimes describes people having a not a true false filter, but an us them filter. And it seems to me that this judge was acting as if us them, I've decided you're them, and the truth of the case incidental at that point. Now, I might be being in dangerous territory making this, but I'm talking about the psychology of an individual who literally has years of Keone's life in her hands, and to treat it so not even flippantly. almost to treat it with hostility. What was that experience like? Like, what was your reaction when you're expecting to have this long, prolonged, orderly court day, and it's 10 minutes?
I think we all just kind of sunk and realized this is a bad situation, right? We
Mm,
were before this point, we really, because there was no, these are conspiracy charges, and
yeah,
there was no intent, there was no conspiring to
yeah,
commit crimes. So
yeah,
we were, you know, almost excited to be able to go in front of a jury and say, no, these are the facts, right? This
mm,
is and fully expecting that they would
yeah,
acquit after hearing the truth.
yeah,
And we went back after she just dismissed all these, and the lawyers and both team. That's the other thing too, right? We have two law firms. We
yeah,
have a law firm representing us, and Bill had a law firm representing us, representing him, and they came. They were very in line with, this is really bad. She's not going to let us put on the defense that we want to put on. Defensive counsel is
yeah,
a valid defense, but a judge, I don't think people realize how much, I didn't until this, like how much control the judge has. She's not
yeah,
just there, to bang the gavel here and there. No, she determines what defense you can put on, what witnesses are allowed to be on the stand,
yeah,
what evidence is presented to the jury. In Tornado Passion, Roman Storm's case, their judge, who was, looked from the outside at first, it was like, oh, wow, this isn't going so well. By comparison, was quite friendly to the defense. But she even said, she said, you're not allowed to mention the word privacy in their case in front of the jury. So like when a judge can determine the words you were allowed to say in front of the jury, like it really does determine the outcome of the case, who your judge is.
wow,
And so yeah, it
yeah,
was really disheartening because the mathematics completely changed. Like
hmm,
you don't have good odds going up against federal prosecutors
yeah,
anyways, just because of
yeah,
all the other stuff we discussed.
hmm,
But it drastically changed
yeah,
with Denise Coates as our judge,
yeah,
and that is ultimately why we ended up taking
yeah,
the plea.
yeah. I think it's a very understandable, um, but it's so Soviet in my. I've read the Gulag Archipelago, and you hear these stories of like confusion, or in the initial days of these arrests, of like, oh, I just got to explain it to them, and then they'll understand, and then this faceless system is like, no, like that's not how this is going to work.
And it
um
even starts before then, right? So like,
mm,
and it was one of the Soviets, these who said, "Show me the man, and I'll show you the crime,"
yeah, it's
and
Beria.
that's
Hmm,
definitely what it is here. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
anyone, and that's why people think, well, oh, they must have done, and it's almost like a protection mechanism. I think people
hmm,
hold
yeah,
that, oh, well, they must have done something wrong, or else they
right,
wouldn't be being targeted. It's like, no, they
yeah,
can find
yeah,
something on anyone,
yeah,
like that if they get you in their sights. So
yeah. And so this system that was doing that, as I understand it, it seems the judge took issue with some libertarian leanings. The calculation had changed with regards to what you thought, the game being rigged. It was clear to you that a plea was the right course of action. What's that process then like? Does that you file a motion for a change in plea or something like that, or
So
um,
the prosecution came to us and they
mm,
said, the plea was, we will
mm,
drop the conspiracy to money launder charge if you plead to the conspiracy to operate an unlicensed money service
mm,
business.
mm,
In addition to that, you need to pay, it's just under 6.4 million, which is the entirety of the 10 years, right? So this is the other thing. That's the entirety of the profit over a business that was running for almost 10 years. And that's profit. That's not, that's everything.
mm,
10 years, this is not this is clearly was not gotten into for trying to get rich from money laundering.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a great job if that's your goal.
It's not a Somali
that wasn't their
daycare
goal.
here. So
exactly. That's not their goal. Their goal was, privacy for normal people because they really do believe in this. But so that, and then they also they said 24 hours. You have 24 hours to decide. You both have to agree. So if one of you agree, and if one of you wants to take the deal and the other one doesn't, too bad, off the table.
Wow.
And what else? So 24 hours. And then if you don't agree to this, we're going for the full 25 years. We're going to beat you in court. We're going to go for the maximum sentence. In addition to that, we're going to put on hold you liable for it was $200 and some million, which is what they claim is illicit money that went through. And we never got that far to actually even check to see if those numbers were accurate, but to $240 some million. So what that means is, Bill is, I believe, 69 years old. So 25 years. If he makes it out of prison, if you have that kind of forfeiture over your head, which clearly they knew we never had that money. They knew how the software worked. He would not have ever been able to return to his wife in Portugal. He would have had to stay in the U.S. and you're pretty much permanently in Keonne. For even though he would still be alive, he'd be in his 50s when he got out. You would be on permanent for the rest of your life parole. So you're never actually free with that. So they did it was still hard even with that. It was still really hard, and that's why there was a lot of care put into Keonne's allocution. And allocution is a statement you make to the court kind of explaining your understanding of the crime. And his allocution, because he didn't want to lie. He's like, I'm not going to get up and lie in court. That's not who I am. So his allocution was, I, along with, Bill, built and maintained Samourai Wallet, was software that users could use to transact their Bitcoin. I did this knowing that some users could be criminals, which was the truth. I think, if anyone has any sense, you realize that criminals use all kinds of things.
Right.
And
the car dealer could be selling to somebody who does a bank robbery. But that's like, you're a car dealer. That's not as
long as you don't know, right?
It's a neutral thing.
Exactly. And it's not and it's different, right? So like if someone came to a car dealer, we'll use them as an example, and said, just robbed this bank, look at all this cash, sell me this car. Well, then the car dealership or car dealer would be a party to that crime because he's knowingly accepting, criminal proceeds.
Right.
But if same guy robbed a bank, came in, bought a car, that's not exchange. Well, why? How would the car dealer know that? He didn't. He didn't proffer that information. And that's the exact same. And it wasn't, this isn't, again, they were not required because they were not a money service business to do KYC AML. Therefore, it's, hypothetically, I'm sure there was criminals using it, but they weren't under the legal obligation to check who their users were.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also a method to protect yourself from criminals. So when you have a breach and your KYC information's out there, I mean, something that offers Mix is a restorative solution to solving yourself as the target that you've become. So
very much so.
So, they've taken away something that can be certainly used for good.
And the design of the software, which is, again, kind of interesting and goes against what they were claiming it was built for. Like if a criminal does steal money, let's say they hack an exchange and they steal a bunch of Bitcoin, they want to move fast to get it so that they can cash it out. The way Whirlpool worked is it was a much slower process. So, you had the TX0, which took the Bitcoin, divided it into like parts. Then you had to wait for other participants to
Hmm.
come in. And so it was not a fast system, which
Right.
therefore discouraged criminals from using it. And it
Right.
really was about, like you said, people who
Yeah.
need to protect their privacy for legitimate reasons
Yeah.
because especially this fast with the spike of with the price of Bitcoin going up,
Hmm.
there's been a massive spike in people being attacked,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's terrible. It really
Yeah.
is.
It's like we've retired the existence of cypherpunks. Like you're not allowed to be a cypherpunk anymore. Like
Mhm. Put on your
ah
suit and tie.
yeah. Yeah. Well. All right. Well, Lauren, I've been you've been very generous with your time, so I don't want to keep you for much longer. We've been talking for a bit here, but anything you want to talk about, how to support Keonne, the change.org petition, let's start there.
Yeah, definitely. So we've been told by Lynn and Russ Albrecht that with their pardon, the petition really did make a difference, right? When you can go and say President Trump or President Trump representatives that this is an issue that people care about, and so if people could go to that, everything can be found through the website billandkeonne.org. That's BILLANDKEONNE.org. And from there, you can follow the link to the change dot org petition to sign. Then also, if anyone does care to donate, either in there's Bitcoin, there's a couple other cryptocurrencies,
Hmm.
and fiat that really does help.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, fighting a case like this, it is we are massively in debt to these
Yeah.
various law firms. In addition
Yeah.
to the $250,000 fine that the judge imposed on top of the forfeiture.
Yeah.
She kind of
Yeah.
went max out with everything she could. So we
Yeah.
said she would have, if she had the option to do a life sentence, she would have. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
the animosity that she felt towards
Yeah.
Keonne. So
All right. Well, one more question then on that note actually is like what is yours and Keonne's view of Bitcoin now? Like, do you still see this as because I see you as making a heroic sacrifice, and I'm grateful for it, and I hope that other people, while it's scary to hear this story, I hope they're brave enough. But what's your feelings on the justice system and then and Bitcoin at this stage?
yeah, I might be, maybe I'm naive, but I am hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
On both fronts. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think that with enough people waking up, there can be real change
Mm-hmm.
to the justice system. Like if people are motivated to
Mm-hmm.
actually kind of go back to what the founding was and actually search for truth and justice
Mm-hmm.
and not you know whatever has been going on. A lot of political weaponization
Mm-hmm.
and lawfare. So for that and for Bitcoin, like I still like Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's the promises there. I think I would warn that if we, as we talked about earlier, if it turns into something where everyone's on custodial exchanges and traceable, and that you're just opening up a panopticon for whoever to really oppress people like they would
Yeah.
be, CBDs, or, if we look to China, like with their social credit system, like that's very doable if people give up, the fundamentals that Bitcoin private, promised, which was pseudonymity and self custody and all those things. So yeah, I think if we focus on that, if people focus on that and continue down that path
Yeah.
and kind of return to privacy, and that there's hope.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I truly mean it. I think that you have just acted so commendably in stepping into this position that life has taken you, and so I am thankful for you sharing your story, and I hope in whatever way each one of us can make a difference that we do, and that has to start with on an individual level. So that's my commitment that that if you ever need anything from me, please reach out.
Well, thank you so much, Robert, for your time, for having me on here. And
yeah, of course. Yeah. All right. Well, take care. Have a good night.
You too.